Welcome, Central City, Pico-Lowell, Bella Vista, Casa Bonita, and Valley Adams residents. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your evening with us. This is actually the 7th in a series of community meetings that we're holding through the month of May. These meetings are being conducted to get your input and feedback about issues impacting your neighborhood environment and the quality of life in not only yours, but other neighborhoods in the city. Your participation tonight will assist staff in finalizing the general plan update that will be considered by City Council later this year. We are joined tonight by Daisy Perez, Assistant to the City Manager, who will be sharing some information on the American Rescue Plan at the beginning of this meeting, and then we'll jump into our environmental justice program. So are there potentially any council people that are with us tonight? I can't hear, no? All right, very good. Then before we begin the program, I'd like to take just 1 second to introduce our staff that are with us tonight. We have Senior Planner and our Spanish interpreter, Margarita Macedonia. We have Alyssa Ventura, also a planner and helping us with some of the technical aspects of things. And then I am Melanie McCann, Principal Planner, and helping as Project Manager on the General Plan Update. So at this time, Alyssa, if you can provide some instructions on how to participate in the meeting, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, of course. If you can go to the next slide.
Just 1 second. We have the dueling. Hold on, everyone. Let's see. Margarita, while I try and continue with this, could you, well, there we go. We got it. All right. Sorry for the delay. Thanks, Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. So we do have Spanish interpretation available today. Ahora en esta junta vamos a tener interpretación en español disponible. Si necesitan interpretación, por favor escriban en el chat que sí lo necesitan para que podamos dar traducción. Y para seleccionar la interpretación van a cliquear el globo y después van a seleccionar el idioma español. And for those that are English speakers, monolingual, if we do have a Spanish speaker that's speaking during the presentation, if you can switch to the English line in the interpretation feature, that way you can listen to what the Spanish speaker is saying during the meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Alyssa. With that, I'd like to welcome and introduce Daisy Perez to share some information with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daisy Perez. I'm the assistant to the city manager. I'll be speaking tonight on behalf of Mayor Sarmiento. He couldn't be here. He's actually at a town hall right now, a virtual town hall with our city manager. So if any of you want more information on what I'm going to talk about, you can jump on that meeting if you'd like. I'll put the information in the chat afterwards. Next slide. So recently, the American Rescue Plan Act was passed by the federal government, and we will be receiving approximately $128 million. We'll be launching an initiative called Revive Santa Ana, and there's multiple components to that. One is to respond to the public health emergency and help mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. Another is to restore part of our general fund and lost revenue that we've experienced during the pandemic. And the third is to invest in necessary improvements in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So we've created this Revive Santa Ana plan with 5 main criterias, and these are very broad, and we'll have more specific information as we gather community input and as we review the final guidelines, which just were issued a couple days ago. And those 5 areas include COVID-19 recovery, and this is for direct recovery efforts, related to the pandemic, including vaccinations, testing, etc. The next is assistance programs, financial relief through various grant programs for businesses, workers, and residents. The next is public health and safety. So one of the things that the mayor is looking to do is to conduct a study or an analysis on what it would be like for us to have our own public health department, since we have various or different health needs from the rest of the county. And right now, the County of Orange is in charge of public health. So exploring whether we as a city want to have our own public health department. Also investing in critical infrastructure, with revitalizing and enhancing different infrastructure projects. I'm not sure if the mobility aspect that's listed here will actually be eligible, but we are looking at various enhancements throughout the city. And then last is to restore our fiscal health. So to bring back all the employees that were laid off during the pandemic, really restart a lot of the programs we weren't able to have, like our parks and recreation youth programs and community centers, and also to recover revenue from any revenue loss experienced during this time. Okay. And we are sharing this information today because we want to hear from you. There's currently a survey that's available for the rest of this week. It should take only about 5 minutes to complete, but we'd love your feedback on how you think that we should spend this money or invest it in various areas. And if you have questions, you can contact us via email or text at the information listed on the screen, and staff will respond to you with more information. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Margarita, do you see any questions in the chat or hands up?
I do not see any questions. If any attendees have questions, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat box regarding Revive Santa Ana.
Okay, and then if you'd like to attend the town hall that's occurring at the same time of this meeting, but it should go on past this meeting, the link to that meeting is available through our website at the Revive Santa Ana link that Alyssa put in the chat. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Daisy. With that, Alyssa, if you could just share again the ways to participate towards the end of I'll give a short presentation, and then after that we'll invite participation and comments. So Alyssa, can you highlight that for us?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways for you to participate tonight. So you can either use the raise your hand feature if you want to make a comment or would like our attention. And then you can also ask a question in the Q&A box or the chat box. We'll be monitoring both throughout the presentation. And for those of you that are dialing in, I don't see anyone just dialing in, but if you are, dial *9 to raise your hand, and then dial *6 to unmute yourself once we call on you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again for joining us tonight. And before we jump into the agenda, we're going to take a quick poll. We're going to ask 2 questions. And let me go ahead and share the poll. Everyone see the poll?
Yeah.
So the first thing is to ask, how did you find out about tonight's meeting? And we always like to get some feedback so that we know what are the best tools to reach out to the community for these types of communication. And so the options are the meeting flyer, a yard sign, you received an email, a Nextdoor message, Facebook or Instagram message, through a friend or a neighbor, an announcement from your church or other organization, through the City of Santa Ana website, or other. So it looks like for those that are taking the poll, it looks like the email has been the preferred method of finding out about things. So the other question that we have for you today relates to our agenda. We'd like to ask, are you familiar with environmental justice issues in your community? Be a yes or no answer. And then the second question is, have you heard of the city's general plan update? So it looks, we'll give it another second. So it looks like the majority is not familiar with the environmental justice issues, but they are familiar with the general plan update. So thank you for that. So the agenda tonight actually is to clarify what is environmental justice. So that sounds like it'll be helpful for the folks that are with us tonight. Then I will go over a bit of what the general plan update is about. And then we'll clarify what exactly makes up an environmental justice neighborhood. And then the part of the evening that we really want to focus on, and that is community discussion and listening to what your thoughts are about environmental justice and the quality of life in your neighborhood. So first off, what is environmental justice? So in a broad definition, it's the idea that there's some portions of the community throughout Santa Ana, throughout California and other places that have a greater burden, a higher level of pollution and health risks. And environmental justice is the effort to correct this inequity and to bring up those disadvantaged areas and the quality of life there. The Santa Ana General Plan, it's an effort that's been going on for a couple of years, and the goal is to plan for our future, and in this case, through the year 2045. So a general plan is required by the state for all cities, and it's to provide some thoughtful direction on not only the physical development of a community, but the overall quality of life, its economic health, environmental sustainability, and again, quality of life for the community. The images that you see below here, they represent the different topics or elements that are covered in the general plan. So you see 11 down here, and a couple of examples would be the land use element, the urban design element, the open space element, the safety element. So those are just a couple of examples. And then the words you see at the bottom of the screen are the themes that came out of our early community outreach as what was most important to the community. So that we call them our core values that are feathered through all of the different elements. So those values are culture, sustainability, health, education, and equity. So as you can see, those values complement as well the environmental justice efforts. So again, just to clarify that it's actually in 2016 when the state legislators created the Planning for Healthy Communities Act, and it's also known as SB 1000. And that requires that when cities update more than 2 or more of their general plan elements, that they need to look closely and study their disadvantaged communities with the goal of reducing the health risks that are in those areas, promoting civic engagement and community involvement in the decision-making process for those areas, and also prioritize improvements in programs for those disadvantaged areas. So the next question is, what exactly is a disadvantaged community? How's that defined? So it's a combination of things. And one is that there's a higher risk of exposure to pollution, be that air, water, or soil, that the residents have a greater burden of some other socioeconomic issues and health concerns. And also often these areas are located near freeways, major roads, or industrial areas. This picture shows what's called the indicators that that help to define a disadvantaged or EJ community. this model, if you will, was put together by the State Environmental Protection Agency. And there's two basic categories. There's some indicators that relate to pollution burden, like exposure to toxic releases from facilities. And then there's others that are called population characteristics. And that might be where there's populations that have a higher level of asthma incidence, or areas that maybe their educational attainment is a little bit lower, or they have a higher poverty level. So all these different factors or indicators are measured, and then they're measured by census tract. So all the little lines you see are census tracts, and you can see Santa Ana's boundary here, and the areas in the dark orange are the areas that are considered EJ communities. So they score in the highest 25% as far as burden level. And those are the areas that we're been reaching out to over the last couple of months. So this is the same map in some ways, but it's clear the areas in pink are all of our environmental justice communities as defined by that model tool we just talked about. And then what's new on this map, the areas that are in yellow, around in yellow, are census tracts that have just recently been shared as part of an update to the model. So it's still in draft, but these areas are anticipated to be added as additional environmental justice areas, while this area in the zebra stripes, if you will, actually has fallen out of being an environmental justice community. And these indicators on the left are the ones that have surfaced as the main priorities for us to address, including the new indicator of lead risk. So with that, I am going to try to try one more poll. And this one is to try and clarify where you live. So on the map, you see the 5 different neighborhoods that were invited tonight. And then you can see the yellow is the boundaries. And then, so for instance, this neighborhood here, number 4, is the Pico-Lowell neighborhood. The pink area, the northern portion of it, is an environmental justice census tract, whereas the lower portion is not. So if we look at the poll, we're asking which neighborhood you're in, and if within that neighborhood, are you in the EJ area of that neighborhood or not? So it looks like, from what I see so far, it looks like we've got a good number of folks from Pico-Lowell area. So thanks for joining in. And then we have a number of folks from other neighborhoods, as well as, it's a 3-way tie, and another group of folks that are interested but don't necessarily live in the city of Santa Ana. So with that, I'll just note again that there's an opportunity now with the update of our general plan to change our goals, policies, and actions that are communicated in that document to improve our existing and our future conditions for Santa Ana, with a special focus on the areas like the EJ areas that are in greatest need of help and protection. So with that, I'll try one more poll before we turn it over to discussion. Let's see if I can get this going. All right. Okay. So
Melanie, you restarted the same one.
right. Let me see. So let's see if I can. Sorry, folks. We have. This is my first time helping out with the poll, so thanks for your patience. So, so what we'd like to ask you tonight, our last poll, is you might have a number of priorities in your neighborhood that you'd like to address, but what are the top 3 priorities from this list that the city can focus on to help improve the health of your neighborhood? And so those options are air or water pollution, road, street lights, and other public facilities, access to healthy food, housing and affordable rent, parks and recreation centers to promote physical activity, ability to influence city policies and programs, and last but not least, quality education. So we'll give that one more second. Okay, we'll go with what we have there. So it looks like it's a 3-way tie. The top 3 are air and water pollution, public facilities such as streets and streetlights, and third, the ability to influence city policies and programs. So that's, we're looking forward to hearing your comments, particularly to influence city's policies and programs. So with that, I'd like to reintroduce Margarita Macedonia so that we can talk a little bit further about your priorities for the neighborhood and your thoughts and experiences to improve the quality of life in your neighborhood. Margarita? I think you're on mute. Well, I'm not hearing Margarita, so I'm going to continue on. And you can interject at any point, Margarita.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so Alyssa is going to continue on our interpreting while I assist in this portion of the meeting.
Thank you.
So, and we do have a Spanish speaker from Casa Bonita who typed in the chat. So thank you, Ms. Pacheco. All right. So this is, as our team leader, Melanie McCann, had mentioned, this is the important part. And we really appreciate everyone who's on the call because, you know, we've been receiving a lot of feedback through the process and knowing what your priorities were, we want to delve into this a little bit more. We want to hear your experiences. What does environmental justice mean to you in any of the neighborhoods that are here tonight? We want to know what recommendations you have based on your experience that the city should be incorporating into our general plan update. So I'd like to open it up to any of the attendees who would like to start off. Maybe Beatrice from New Horizons. B, it's great to see that you're joining us. If you want to unmute yourself and be able to share, that would be awesome, B. So we'll wait for B. Okay, go ahead, B. Okay, we'll wait for her to unmute. Let's hear from Claire Brayborn. All right. America on Track is here. So go ahead, Claire.
Hi, it's Alex. I think I logged in with Claire's
That's
Zoom
fine.
account. Good evening. We are definitely excited. We've been listening to a few of your environmental justice. I think is amazing that the city of Santa Ana is doing this and working with community members. We've noticed that a lot of them are suffering through air pollution. So I was really excited to see that as the #1 choice, or it was a 3-way tie. So it's nice. So we're here to help in anything that you guys are willing to do to include smoke-free environments. If there is any need, or if you guys need any help in anything, we are more than glad to join in.
So Claire, and I even changed your name I renamed you to Alex. So Alex, you work with a lot of families in some of these neighborhoods. So in addition to the smoke-free campaign, what are some other experiences that you're hearing directly from the families that have to do with environmental justice and the priorities that people selected right now?
Yes, so we are seeing more of the physical education, like what you guys were putting down in the parks for increasing physical education activities. That is one of the big ones. So we, before COVID, we were offering physical education classes at different parks throughout the city. So I'm glad to see that. And then promoting healthy food. Within our nutrition classes, we're always promoting healthy food. And then just teaching about nutrition. I know we have a class going on about plant-based dieting right now on Wednesdays. And it's a series of 5 classes. So it's open and it's in English and Spanish. And we'll provide other languages as needed. And we are also working with drug prevention programs. I guess it's just healthy environments or enhancing civic engagement, just providing that education about drug prevention programs throughout the city. So I know that we see that as a need and just on the prevention side for the youth and the kids.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. Do you have based on the needs that the community has communicated, is there a recommendation or something that you would say that the parents would want to see the city incorporate as far as improving the environmental quality in their neighborhood?
Yes. So we had a community meeting last Friday, and what we were hearing is the air pollution, right? The secondhand smoke, air pollution, and within that you include, any tobacco smoke or any kind of marijuana smoke or any kind of like pollutant smoke. We know that that is a big issue, and I feel like sometimes I'm like a broken record, but I think that is like the biggest issue because we were hearing from one of our members, our community members, that all of their family have been more sick with whether it's with allergies or asthma, or they've been finding other symptoms because of just the air, the contaminant air that is coming in their community or into their apartments. Because just being at home, this past year, just being at home and being exposed to all that toxic air is just hurting them more. Whereas before they would go to work, they would be at school, or they would be able to be at the park more often, and they would literally just come home and sleep. But seeing them and hearing their stories, I think it's heartbreaking, because I think she was on the 27th meeting that you guys had. Or Mini Street, like she was there, and then she was able to share more information about it and how her and her family have been sick, and you feel bad for them because they don't have anywhere to go, right? Their home is supposed to be somewhere safe for them. So I know within that they're advocating for a lot of smoke-free environments just to be able to, or even waiting for the bus stop, like at bus stops, to make them smoke-free. I know at the parks they're very thankful that they're smoke-free. But bus stops, they were saying, especially when they're waiting for the kids to get to their school, like now that they're opening up more, just waiting for bus at bus stops, and then that's about it. Like that's what they were telling us. Like it's heartbreaking hearing their stories.
Yeah, and we appreciate the insights that you're bringing through their stories to this meeting. That's very helpful, Alex. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's go back to B. Let's see if you can unmute yourself, B, so we can hear you. If not, let's see if Rebecca Pacheco. I know she lives in Casa Bonita. Rebecca, if you could unmute yourself, Rebecca. Okay, Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. Okay, I think she. Rebecca, if you can unmute yourself para que podamos escucharla, Rebecca. Okay, so we're unable to hear Rebecca. How about Candice Miller? Do you have something to share, Candice?
Hi.
Hi, Candice.
Hi.
Welcome.
So, we live in Pico-Lowell, and one of the things that we would like to see is definitely reducing the exposure to pollution. I remember when we got a notice in our mail that we had contamination in our groundwater. And so like little things like that, well, big things like that are super important, as well as like just the air pollution, because we do have a lot of people that walk the neighborhoods, as well as so air and water pollution, definitely.
Can you tell us more about what you're seeing, with neighbors walking through? What is it that there is like a lot of vehicles, or just, I mean, we had the previous caller share about the smoke. We just wanted to understand a little bit more about the experience.
Well, there are a lot of bus stops on the main thoroughfares, like along Bristol, that do get a lot of traffic. And I noticed that some of the bus stops are facing the street, while others, the seats kind of face the shopping centers. And that would be pretty important for someone that has to take public transportation,
Yes.
breathing the pollution, when there are a lot of cars that go by. And especially with the addition of the bike lane, it's just a lot more traffic, a lot more standing traffic, and a lot more emissions.
And if you had any specific recommendations on what the city could do, or what policies could be adopted, or actions, is there something that you can share today on the call that we ought to consider?
I'm not really sure, but possibly, I don't know, alternate bus routes while the construction's going on. I'm not sure how long that project's going to take.
Measures to reduce that exposure that you're seeing right now, especially
Yeah,
on the thoroughfares, maybe giving thought to how that could be reduced, maybe? I'm just,
yeah,
I know.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And
Is there any?
possibly with the addition of the bike lane, encouraging people to bike more instead of driving. We're in a super accessible area, especially right next to downtown, and just encouraging people to bike more instead of driving.
Excellent recommendations. Thank you, Candice.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back to Rebecca Pacheco. Let's try her one more time. Rebecca, if you can unmute yourself. Oh, you know what? She's typed in the chat. So Rebecca lives in the Casa Bonita neighborhood. And so on the chat, she's typed, when the street sweeper passes by the streets, oh, so she's she's noticed that in other neighborhoods, the street sweeper passes by twice, but not in her neighborhood. So I think her point is probably regarding the quality of how the street is being maintained, by the street sweeper. But we can check. Rebecca, si es posible, if it's possible, we can ask you to elaborate a little bit more by unmuting yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like the third time
Or maybe to clarify the streets.
or to clarify. Yeah.
So we
Thank
can
you, Melanie.
talk to our public works folks.
Yeah. So yeah, Rebecca, if you can clarify the streets. I think I know the street, but I'll turn to her. Clarify.
And
Okay. So as she's doing that, I have Terry McCall, and Terry's joined us for several meetings. Terry, hi.
Hello.
Okay, we could hear you.
Okay. On this street cleaning, the way how they do it on Bristol Street is they sweep the street first and then they put the landscape people on the sidewalks and blow the sidewalk dust up into the air. It doesn't seem very efficient to me to keep our neighborhood dust free.
And so you're right there on the North Bristol side, right? And that's where you're seeing it more. Or are you seeing it in the memory lane? Or are you seeing it in other places?
Oh, no, on the memory lane, I had to tell the sweeper that if he's making dust, he's not doing anything. The idea of sweeping the street is to have the water suppress the dust into to get into the sweeper, not into the air. But on the backside, it's the way how they clean the sidewalks with the leaf blowers. And it just puts all that debris, they just blow it down the street till it gets in a big enough pile that they can pick it up.
And so you're recommending a different approach or using the water to contain the dust so it doesn't.
I think one relates to the landscaping part. That would be something that we might check with, although it's not the city's authority, if you will, but be interesting to check with the Air Quality Management District and see if there's any new rules on the horizon. So for instance, at one point there were some rules to try and transition blowers or incentives to have people transition their blowers to electric blowers. Because not only are they blowing dust, they also emit a certain amount of emissions. So we could, reach out and try and find some more education on that.
Great. Thank you. Terry, was there anything else?
Is there a way that we can enforce the environmental rules more efficiently?
What kind of rules would you be thinking of?
Like the AQMD, that the AQMD doesn't have to see the dust in the air to cite somebody, that they can, according to the AQMD, the only way they can cite somebody for a discharge of a substance is they have to actually see it.
Yeah, so I think what Terry's talking about is the process for the reporting of complaints, right? And what triggers sending an inspector out to an air quality complaint.
Right.
That would Terry, I think that would involve just having that discussion, with
Well,
it's I think beyond what the city could do, because the AQMD would be the enforcement agency, unless Melanie, you had something else to add.
No, I don't, but this is very anecdotal, but it makes me think of some communities have volunteer code enforcement people that help them with their enforcement. Maybe the AQMD might be open to some idea
Yeah.
like
Can
that.
I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, feel free.
On
Yes.
the last incident that I was involved with the city, I contacted Department of Public Works, Teresa with the OCTA, and Walsh Safety, and I explained my problems was the trash, tripping hazards, and the dust. Which I think that once you report that to those three people, you've done your due diligence. It's up to them to clean up their act. And all I could do was just stand out there and watch all this stuff go on, all this dust being kicked into the air. And I'm going, well, I reported it. Nobody's coming out.
I think you've been working most recently with Public Works Agency. Is that correct, Terry?
Everybody that will listen.
Well, I know there's been folks that that you have been working with on a lot of different levels. For us in planning, what we can offer is to double back with those folks and to see what the avenues are to better address things for, you know, in your exact situation and for future things. And that's
Well,
why I just threw out an out of the box sort of notion.
See, I
for that
reported it,
enforcement.
and then it was allowed to happen.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're bringing up, you know, the agencies that you're reporting it to and the enforcement, you know, which is, you know, what's the expectation? And I think that something like that requires just, it requires additional follow-up conversations, you know, with those agencies also, and then just with circling back with our public works and just other departments. And that's all I think, you know, we're all trying to, you know, work towards getting clarity on what is the experience. Like, we know your experience, Terry, and others who are on the call in terms of environmental justice, and you're speaking from the enforcement area and who's going to do that. So I think that's helpful. I just wanted to turn it back to our Q&A box. We did receive a recommendation from Candace regarding a campaign. So Melanie, I think this is one of the recommendations for us to include to a campaign to community members about keeping their yard and areas around the house clean would help with the movement of trash by wind and ground pollution. So thank you, Candace.
Thank you. Sounds like Public Works has that, they have that program right now where they're looking for the best street. Maybe the one of the criteria needs to be the best cleaned up street for
Oh
no
yeah,
trash.
for the neighborhood block
Yeah.
beautification program, yes.
Yeah, no trash as an incentive. Thank you for that suggestion.
All right, so if there's anyone else who wants to raise their hand, just let us know. This is very insightful, everyone's recommendations. I think Candace is the first time that we've heard a recommendation like yours, which is excellent. Okay, so we have some more from Rebecca. So she has provided the specific street areas regarding the street sweeping. So she's talking about Willits Street, Daisy, Myrtle, especially Myrtle. So it's south of First Street in that area, the Casa Bonita neighborhood, and how there are private streets. There are private streets that mention around Daisy and Myrtle that have a lot of vehicles parked there and they don't move the vehicles. Or people work on those vehicles. And so that affects the parking along that block. So she's trying to see how her and other residents can get assistance regarding that. And she also wanted to make us aware about the amount of trash in the alleyway. Because there are people who do not live in the apartments, in the Myrtle apartments, but they go and they dump their trash either on the ground or they use the large containers. So that's another concern that's affecting the quality of life in her area of the neighborhood. Thank you, Rebecca, for all of those details. Thank you. So part of it is with Public Works, but it's also about, I think, Melanie, working with the community, right, on how to keep the neighborhood cleaner, working probably with the apartment owners and the residents. And we know that KidWorks is there too, their main office, and the city yard is there too. It's very, very close by. So there are definitely some opportunities.
Yeah, and I think as well for that opportunity to work with folks like yourself that are joining us tonight, that obviously are showing some leadership and work together with the city to go the next step to create some of these programs. So in our general plan, we can identify an action to support these kinds of efforts. But really, as I think Margarita mentioned, it's the city, it's the community, you residents, and it's all working together for the best, the best ideas and how to incentivize, to address the trash dumping or the trash in general. So I think there's some good opportunities there. Well, and we will follow up with some of you to see if we can have some more conversation on that.
Especially Rebecca in the Casa Bonita neighborhood. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So Melanie, we don't have any other questions, so we can continue.
Okay, very good. All right. See if I can wake up my computer and we'll be in good shape. Whoops, so sorry. So just a few more slides. I wanted to provide examples of what we call implementation actions in the general plan. So we have goals, we have policies, and then we have specific actions. So this one is actually to update what's called our zoning code and the development and operational standards for how businesses operate in our industrial zones to better address the incompatibility between industrial uses and some sensitive uses like residents, schools, daycare, and other, community parks and such. So this action would be put in the general plan. It's drafted now to conduct a study to evaluate and establish appropriate minimum distances or landscape buffers or whatever else might be a positive thing to better buffer polluting uses from, as we mentioned, these sensitive uses. And that's come from prior feedback from the community. For each of our actions, we put the city agency that would be a lead on that, and then a target date. So at the time this was drafted, it was Planning and Building Agency would take the lead on that, and we would start work on that in 2021. So here we are. The other example, and it touches on a little bit, I think, what some of you have brought up regarding, where do we go? Who's going to help address some of these issues? We've talked about gathering an interagency team, and the idea of that team would be to monitor and evaluate issues related to air quality and environmental hazard, with a special focus on the environmental justice areas, like some of your neighborhoods. And the next step of that would be to actually publish information and results of studies or articles on the city's website, so we could all have access to it. So it'd be a dedicated environmental quality webpage where you can go and find out where are the industrial businesses that have air quality permits, what is the study on lead contamination recently completed. So it'd be all these different resources to share. And one other example would be the Madison Park. Folks have a grant and they've been able to do some great work with monitoring air quality. Their report and their findings could also be put on this location so that everybody's aware and that we're all sharing information. So those are just two examples of action. So from what you've shared with us tonight, we'll go back and see if there's some other additional actions like these and like some of the ideas you brought up that would be appropriate to put in the plan for City Council to officially approve. So the timeline to make this come together is we're finishing our environmental justice meetings. There's 2 more towards the end of the month. And then we will be taking your comments and adjusting the general plan document later this spring. Then we'll bring the results of that to Planning Commission for a work study session. And then for this type of a document, we have to do an environmental impact report. So we'll be revising the environmental impact report. And then the goal is to get to the public hearing phase towards the end of this year. And that's where council would consider it and adopt it, which, you know, gives the city staff direction, and it's all shared, of course, with the community. So hopefully, aside from participating tonight, hopefully you've had an opportunity to communicate also through the environmental justice survey that's electronically online. It's you can access it on our general plan webpage. It's available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And just recently, we also have a Cambodian translated survey. And you can also always email us or call us with any follow-up questions or suggestions. So with that, we really appreciate you sharing your evening with us. And we look forward to continuing the conversation and finding all the solutions and all the good ideas to make Santa Ana a better place for everyone. Or keep it good, keep it great.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. And
bye. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, too, I think we didn't get a chance to thank some of the neighborhood leaders that helped get the word out for us, you know, put yard signs out in the neighborhood and help with flyers. So we wanted to just also say thank you on that avenue. All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Good night.